Welcome back to Chicago Sports Update here on IAP Podcast. This is Matt. A very quick show. Wrapping up the winter meetings down in San Diego. It was very Chicago-centric, and we could not be happier about that. The Cubs made the big splash by signing one of the top starting pitchers on the free agent market, specifically Jon Lester, to a 6-year, $155 million contract with a possible option for a 7th year. I think a couple kickers have to happen, like pitching 200 innings or so. So that will be a really interesting thing to happen. Probably a very interesting signing for the Cubs. That is a very aggressive move, and it's certainly the right move. They get a left-handed starting pitcher, which they really desperately needed, and one that can really anchor the staff more so than what they thought Edwin Jackson could do, though I don't know if anyone truly believed that Edwin Jackson was capable of anchoring a starting rotation. It being a 6-year deal, runs through the end of the decade, so certainly by that point in time, the Cubs will be competing, I would fully expect, on an annual basis, and the plan will be in motion, in real visible motion. Not that it hasn't been, but you're going to see that real traction. You're going to see those players that they've been developing come to fruition over those years, and they will be competitive. I certainly don't expect them to be hyper-competitive come 2015. It certainly hastens the conversation, and it certainly puts the pressure on the front office to make those aggressive moves and potentially put a more competitive product in Wrigley, and maybe earlier than what they want. I certainly think that they would like to get the arbitration clock started a little later on Chris Bryant, but that's going to be very, very difficult for them to do come spring training, especially if he does have a very, very good spring training. It's almost like it's his position to lose at this point. But aside from signing Jon Lester, they end up trading and the Cubs, that is, getting Miguel Montero, big hitting catcher from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Good trade. It certainly makes. I couldn't even tell you the individual's name who's on there right now. Brandon would have a better idea, but certainly a player that I know has been well respected among Cub fans. So, Wellington Castillo, I believe that's it. Yes, Wellington Castillo is the other catcher for the Cubs right now. So some teams have inquired on him. So not to be surprised, he may end up getting traded come spring training, but certainly expected during the offseason, as that's now a little bit more of a position of depth for them. Switching sides, this started off the big Chicago-centric winter meetings, and that was the finalization of the much-rumored Jeff Samardzja trade to the White Sox. It did come to fruition. All the details have been released. White Sox send Marcus Semien, Josh Phegley, Chris Bassett, a start pitcher, who was sent down to the minors or optioned down to the minors during the early part of the offseason this year, as well as a prospect, Dan Rivera, Devaro, something around that. I can't specifically recall. Never really came up on my radar as a prospect for us to watch. It was down at the single A level, but having purged the A's having purged their system to get some of the high quality talent that they did get during the year last year, specifically Jeff Samardzja and Jon Lester, coincidentally these two players, they lost a lot of system depth, and that's something that they are very much known for, so it's time for them to replenish, and so they did such. They burnt it down and are building it back up, as it were. I am very pleasantly surprised by the trade. I'm comfortable with it because it's a no-lose position for the White Sox. They, as far as I'm concerned, the White Sox unloaded dead weight. Josh Phegley was not going to make the team. My sources indicate that he had burned his bridges and did not have a good reputation amongst the staff, the coaching staff that being. So no surprise that he was just a logjam. The White Sox claiming a catcher from the Marlins at the beginning of the winter meetings, so adding that depth, foreshadowing the departure of Josh Fegley. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a catcher battle going into spring training and saying, okay, who's going to win the starting job, because Tyler Flowers isn't anybody to really write home about. He's not an all-star. He's not somebody particularly I find, I guess, overall useful for the franchise. I wouldn't mind giving somebody else the opportunity to better produce. So we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Marcus Semien, a middle infielder, utility man. Very young, good, adequate, I'd say. Certainly major league replacement level at the bare bones minimum. He's certainly capable. Given room to grow, I think he could do well. The White Sox, I think, have a better future in front of them with some of the younger talent that's at the AAA level and some of the utility players that they have right now. So they were in a stopgap formation, having finally jettisoned Gordon Beckham during the trade deadline last year. So I shouldn't say last year, but last season. I don't project him to be an all-star. I don't project him to be an impact player for anybody, but he will be a reliable major leaguer. Somebody in the vein of maybe a Jose Valentin. I would certainly think better than Royce Clayton. That would, I would think, be a bottom of the barrel type baseline for him. Maybe someone like Marco Scudero, and someone that has had a stint with the A's. I think he even came up with the A's. But adequate utility player, versatile. To me, his bat didn't warrant his playing time. He had shown some flashes from the games that I had seen him in, but not anybody that I figured had a real tremendous future here in the White Sox organization, and that's fine by me. Now, when I say that it's a pretty safe situation for the White Sox, you have somebody that's very familiar with the city, having been drafted and played for the Cubs last year and some years before, familiar with the town, a Northwest Indiana guy. I couldn't tell you if he was a Cubs or Sox fan growing up, and particularly, I don't really care. Sometimes some of those hometown guys get a little funny, and in the vein of like Rob Makowiak or anybody like that. But I'd like to see the White Sox extend him. However, I don't think they're ever going to be able to. This is somebody that has always talked about free agency for as long as sports radio listeners can recall here in Chicago. This past year, the Cubs had tried to extend him for, I think, another 3 or 4 years, and he declined that option. He said, I'd rather test free agency, and with the Cubs going nowhere, sure, he was a valuable piece, and, well, yes, he did end up at a contender at that time, did the best that he could to help them. Unfortunately, they lost all their offense when the Athletics ended up trading Yoenis Cespedes. So what can you say about that? Worst case scenario, Jeff Samardzja walks. Well, I shouldn't say that. Worst case scenario, Jeff Samardzja continues to perform well and ends up in doing so for a bad White Sox team. I certainly hope that's not the case. I certainly hope the White Sox are competitive in 2015. But if they're not, and it's just going nowhere fast, he's showing to be a competent starting pitcher, flip him. Get some prospects for him. Especially if he has not already taken a contract extension. Second worst case scenario, he walks. The White Sox make a qualifying offer. They get a supplemental draft pick. I can never turn away from another draft pick, and I'm certainly glad the White Sox are starting to value those a little bit more than they had in previous years, and certainly during the general managership of Ken Williams. But Ken Williams has done very, very good things for the White Sox organization, so I'm not going to try to badmouth him too much on that. But having burned the farm system before, I don't want to burn it again, so I'm very happy if they do continue to restock and continually pile up draft picks and restock their farm system. Okay, to me, honestly, the least likely option, he ends up signing an extension. This is somebody that I think that could command, I don't think Jon Lester money. I just don't see it. His best asset right now is the fact that he has currently, going into this season, nearly 9,000 pitches less on his arm. And that is such a good thing right now. That is very, very valuable. I really do find that, to me, is honestly probably 2 years, I'd say. If not, more than that, I'd actually say. And that's a good thing. That wear and tear is not on his arm, not on his shoulder, not on his elbow. So there's some longevity there. I certainly think under the tutelage of Don Cooper and the staff, the training staff of the White Sox, he could have a very long career here with the White Sox. However, that's going to come at a very pretty penny. One, I don't know if the White Sox are willing to go out there for. I would certainly expect him to get at least a 5-year offer at a bare bones minimum. I would not be surprised if it was 5 years. Oh, gosh. 5 years, maybe 120 out there. I would certainly think the Yankees or the Tigers or the Dodgers, heck, even the Cubs willing to pony up that and going into next offseason, or excuse me, during next offseason. But I don't know if the White Sox are. They typically do not sign pitchers for more than 3 years. Some of these relief pitchers that they ended up signing this year seem to be an exception. Zach Duke, I believe, getting 3 years, as well as the White Sox new closer, David Robertson, who gets a 4-year, $46 million contract. And that's going rate. I find it a very good and aggressive move for them. Having pitched on the biggest stage in New York, I don't mind him shrinking a little bit under the little spotlight that the White Sox get. And that's totally fine by me. I certainly expect him to fit in well with the organization. So I hope he has the best years of his career here for the White Sox, and that'd be great. Certainly shoring up a bullpen that has been very suspect over the past couple of years is something that I'm very glad that Rick Hahn has decided to address, and continuing the final move in that being the acquisition of Dan Jennings. Dan Jennings from the Florida Marlins for Andre Rienzo. I really liked Andre Rienzo. I liked his pace a lot, and I liked his aggressiveness. This guy was somebody that worked very fast, faster than probably he should have. But I like that aggressiveness. That's something that I have grown up as, watching Mark Burley for countless years here in a White Sox uniform, work fast and work hard. So I liked Rienzo. I thought he had some good potential. I don't know what the fit was. He did not perform to what I had expected to going into his his first full year on the Major League club. Was back and forth between AAA and the White Sox, filling in for some of the different injuries or the lack of depth that they had, or options, I guess, effective options that they had out of the bullpen this year. But he did not end up getting a September call-up. So his near 6 ERA by the end of the year wasn't going to cater well to this to the 2015 year. Wasn't going to serve well, wasn't going to play well to it. So trading him, giving him a better opportunity down in Miami to grow. Okay, all the best to him. He's the first Brazilian-born pitcher to pitch in the major leagues, and I really kind of like that. I like that being a point of pride for the White Sox to kind of have that diverse outlook for different pitchers and players as well. So it's been a very busy winter, late fall, early winter here for us here in Chicago. I'm very happy with the moves from both sides of town. It certainly makes it very exciting because it has been able to take us away from the disaster, the sheer complete organizational disaster, which, yes, you did hear about here on these airwaves, on this feed, several weeks ago, right after the Green Bay collapse. The debacle, the massacre up in the behind the Cheddar Curtain up in the Norland there.